Hi, I'm Gemma. I'm an astrologer and a mother of 4. And if you are back after watching the Remember video, welcome to the Root video, where we are going to meet the initiate and talk about what it means to root into our remembering, where the dreamer remembers, the initiate chooses. So when I was 21, I became a mother for the first time. And I had come from a very strict religious background, and I became a mother out of wedlock. And so my family essentially disowned me at that time, and I left my partner. And this was my initiation. This was the threshold that I crossed. Rather than holding on to everyone that I possibly could, I recognized the relationships in my life that were toxic, and I left. And as I left, I knew that I had nowhere to go, that no one was going to walk that path with me, and that I was responsible for this tiny baby. He was 9 months old when I left my partner, and we moved house a lot that year. I really struggled to find a stable place for us to live. We were very poor. It was a real struggle to provide enough money for us to eat, and yet I made choices. I planned a life for us. And my plan back then, I sometimes look back and I think, wow, that was a little bit naive. I had dreamed of being a teacher. I wanted to be an art teacher. And so I went back to college to study, to get a degree in fine art. And I made these decisions that shaped our life. And they were born from a place of soul remembering, of recognizing the pieces of myself that lit up, the pieces of myself that I wanted to really cultivate, even in that season, even in that space of loss and exile, abandonment. Even in that space, these were the pieces of myself that I wanted to cultivate. And I knew that these were the pieces of myself that would take me to the next phase in my life. And so my rooting, my initiation was about building roots, about rooting in to whatever solid ground I could find in adversity. And it was not easy, as I'm sure you can imagine. It was not like taking the next step in a path that had been curated for me. I have never been good at doing that. It was taking a leap off a cliff into the unknown and just trusting that I would find a way. And I did find a way. And that did not mean that it went well or even that any of it was a good decision. But I truly believe that all of the things that I did back then, they were all the right decisions, and they all brought me to the places that I needed to go. And I'm sure that your initiation looks different. That rooting for you has looked different to how it has for me. And all of the phases of rooting that I've been through have looked different as well. There have been times where I have been in a position where I've been well resourced and well supported, and still had to root in a new idea, a new identity. I feel like that has been very much the story of this business. It's been in the rooting phase quite often of like creating and rooting into new identities, new ways of being, new ways of showing up. Phase of rooting may not always be easy, but it is always a choice. It is always about the choices that we make, about the steps that we take, about the actions that we choose to move us forwards. It is the moment where your dream meets the earth, and it corresponds to the energy of spring, of new life, of new things being birthed, to that first quarter moon, the tension of creation meeting its first aspect to the sun. The root is the moment that the seed cracks open. And there is a sense of shedding within that. There is a sense of becoming something new. This is the cycle of becoming, and each of these phases is a new phase in that journey of becoming. And so as the seed cracks open and begins to send out roots, each of those roots are finding a place to hold, a place to build, a place to grow, a place to draw nourishment from. And at first, you might not be able to see them, but not long after you start sending down roots, there starts to be shoots appearing above the earth as well. As we send roots, we are preparing for whatever it is that we are growing above the ground, in this garden of our lives, in this garden of our dreams. What is it that we are hoping will appear above the soil? And how can we send roots that give that all of the nourishment that it needs? What are the initial steps that we need to take so that that plant can grow and can flourish and can be nourished over time? And stepping into this phase means that you have recognized that your life is too small for the person that you are becoming. That you need to make space, that you need to take up more space, that is the next step in your journey, is to take up more space. It often happens through a cracking open, through exhaustion, through loss, through a desire that is so strong and that you need to build something new, that you need to create something bigger in your life, that you need to make more space for yourself, for your own expansion. And for you, if this also feels like, in many ways, this is a reaction to pain, this is a reaction to loss, this is building because you have lost something, I want to encourage you to think of this as an act of devotion to yourself. That we are not building out of pure desperation. And I think this is a journey that I keep on being brought back to with each child that I have now, in a completely different space, in a stable relationship where I am well resourced and I can make thoughtful, well resourced decisions. I still find myself drawn to really similar decisions. The returning to work has been on a really similar timescale to my return to college after my first child. My desires and my aspirations have the same soul remembering that runs through all of them. And for so long, I told this story of so many of my actions coming from a place of not having choices and of not having the space or the resource to do things differently. And yet actually, I think I would make the same choices over and over and over again. And I do make similar choices, or choices that have a really similar energy to them, over and over and over again. And that is another form of this soul remembering, recognizing these patterns, recognizing the things that you are drawn to, the ways that your soul is choosing a path for you. So let's talk about some of the ways in which I have been making these same choices over and over again, because I think maybe that will help you to understand the patterns in your own life. So if we go back to my first child and the ways in which I decided that it was better to be alone than to be in a toxic relationship, I think that I imagine that it would have had to be really, really terrible for me to make that choice, because life was so hard on my own with a small baby. But actually, I see myself make that choice over and over again throughout my life. When I met my husband, the church that I was going to then effectively asked me to leave because he wasn't a Christian and they didn't approve of that relationship. And in many ways, I lost my whole community. I lost my chosen family through that decision. But I am not afraid to leave people behind if they are no longer in alignment with where I'm headed. And I have other times in my life where I've made those decisions with friendships, with social groups, where it's not been the right place anymore. I've outgrown it. And so it was time to move on. And particularly leaving my church, it was really sad to see masks fall off and to see how empty and hollow some of my friendships there actually were. I would have liked to keep some of those friends. And I did keep a couple who are some of the most precious people in my life now. But it was like, it's a non-negotiable. Like, if you can't accept me for who I am now, for where I am now, for where I am headed, then you don't need to be in my life. And I am comfortable with moving on to the next phase without you. When I lost my next child to a miscarriage at 17 weeks, I shifted my life completely. Again, the work that I was doing was no longer in alignment for me, and there was an opportunity to move into doing astrology, and so that was the path that I took. And in many ways it was a poor decision, because at the time I had a fairly successful cleaning business, and astrology, it's taken me a long time to build this business, especially because I haven't had a huge amount of time to invest in it because I've had more babies along the way. But at the time, I felt like I might not be a mother again in this way. Like, I was obviously still a mother, but I felt like I wasn't going to have any more children. So I invested what I had at that time, what time and money I had, into building this astrology business, which is now just one of the most precious parts of my life in terms of sustaining my own identity, sustaining my own dreams and desires, alongside mothering my children and nurturing their precious little dreams. So again, I see this journey of like leaning into that soul remembering and rooting into it, even if it doesn't seem logically like the right thing to do. It feels so deeply aligned with my soul, and that I'm not sure if I could do anything else. I want to share with you an offering as well that is aligned with the process of rooting. And the offering for the rooting is called the Initiation Reading. It is a 90-minute classic astrology chart reading. So I will read your chart and pick out the key themes in your chart, the key transits, the life cycle that you're in, the energy that is really active in your chart right now, the places where astrologically rooting is happening, And we ground all of this in your journey. You can share with me what's coming up for you and where you are pouring your energy at this point, what your work, what your motherhood journey, what transitions you are in at the moment and what they look like. And we can talk about how to root in this place, whether it is a place of adversity or opportunity. What does rooting look like for you in this space, in this part of your life? And help you to get a really deep understanding of your soul remembering, of your soul's essence. So in the next part of this series, we're going to look at the tending phase and the archetype of the priestess. But for now, what the dreamer has remembered, the initiate plants in the soil and allows it to root and to grow and to become in a new way, in a new identity. The next phase is all about continuing that journey, about tending to that plant, about nourishing them, about helping them to grow in small, sustainable ways that we can hold for the longer term. Acts of devotion that sustain this process of becoming. But for now, if this is the phase that you are in, if you are planting your dreams in the soil right now, trust that you are in the right place, that you are planting the right dreams. Trust that soul remembering to guide you, and trust that your roots will grow deep and will grow strong when the time is right to be initiated in this new phase of becoming.